Hey there, ready for a deep dive?
Always ready.
Awesome. So, we're tackling the Bubble Manual today.
What, with a bubble Bible?
Yeah. It's a bit of a beast, though. Over 600 pages.
That's a lot of pages to bubble through.
Exactly. So we're going to distill it down, extract the absolute essentials. You know, the stuff to get you up and running on Bubble quickly.
Sounds good to me. Let's make it digestible.
Right? Like a shot of Bubble brilliance.
I like that.
So the manual kicks off with this 3-step process for building an app. Database, user interface, workflows.
The foundation, right?
Yeah, the fundamental building blocks. Like
Yeah.
every app needs these no matter what.
Makes sense. But here's what I find really interesting, the way Bubble approaches this. It's not about wrestling with code.
Oh yeah, Bubble flips the script. It's all visual, intuitive.
Right. So no staring at screens full of cryptic symbols.
No, it's like speaking a language anyone can understand.
Okay, that's a relief. So the manual talks about starting with an MVP. Minimum viable product. What's that all about?
An MVP. It's all about focus. You zero in on the core value of your app, get it out there fast.
So kind of like a prototype, a stripped-down version.
Exactly. You solve the most essential problem first. Don't need all the bells and whistles right away. It's like launching a food truck before you open a fancy restaurant.
I get it. Start small, test the waters, then build it up.
Precisely. Iterate, evolve. It's a journey.
Makes total sense. The manual uses this example, a simple app for remembering phone numbers.
Oh yeah, classic example.
So how does that fit into the whole MVP thing?
It's a perfect illustration. At first, your phone number app, it just stores names and numbers,
Mhm.
the bare minimum. But as you get feedback, you can add features. You know, contact grouping, search, even integrate with other apps.
So it's not about building the perfect app right away. It's about building something valuable, and then you keep making it better.
You got it.
Okay, that's actually pretty encouraging. But speaking of building, the manual calls the database structure the heart of your app. Why is that so crucial?
Well, the database, it's where all your app's information lives. Think of it like the foundation of a house. If it's not solid, things get messy fast.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. But I gotta be honest, database structure, it sounds kind of intimidating.
It's simpler than you think. Bubble makes it approachable, especially with their visual data editor. It's all laid out in front of you.
So what do I need to think about when it comes to the database?
You got to figure out what data you need to store. Like,
Mhm.
is it user info, product details, that kind of thing. And then define the data types, how it all connects.
So like if I'm building a social media app, I'd need to store user profiles, posts, comments.
Exactly. And you define those types, you know, text for names, images for pictures, dates for posts, and so on.
Okay, makes sense. And then there are privacy rules.
Oh, yeah. Privacy rules are huge. You control who sees what, keep sensitive stuff safe.
Right. Super important these days. Okay, but what about the visual side? I'm not a design guru. Can Bubble help me make an app that doesn't look, homemade?
Definitely. You don't have to be a design pro. Bubble has tons of built-in tools, resources. It's very user-friendly.
So what are my options?
You can start with a pre-designed template and tweak it, or build from scratch with their drag-and-drop interface.
Templates, that sounds promising. Anything else design-wise?
They recommend Figma and Sketch for mocking up your app before you get into Bubble. Great for prototyping and experimenting. You can even import your designs directly.
Okay, cool. So we've got the heart, the database, we've got the face, the design. Now let's talk brains, workflows.
All right, the logic that makes your app tick, this is where things get interactive.
Yeah, the manual says workflows are what power your app's interactivity. Break that down for me.
Think of them like instructions for your app. They tell it how to respond to user actions. Like when a user clicks a button, the workflow determines what happens next. Maybe new content pops up, maybe the database updates. It's all defined in the workflow.
So it's like setting up a sequence of events, a chain reaction.
Exactly. Bubble has this visual workflow editor. You drag, you drop, you connect elements, no coding needed.
Wow, sounds powerful. But what if something goes wrong? I saw something in the manual about a debugger.
Ah, the debugger. It's your best friend for troubleshooting. You can step through your workflow, line by line, see what's happening at each stage.
So like X-ray vision into your app's brain.
You got it. Super helpful for catching those pesky errors.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a little more confident about this Bubble thing. We've got the foundation, the look, and the brains. What's next on our deep dive?
Welcome back. Ready to build some awesome UIs.
Let's do it. I'm feeling inspired.
Awesome. Let's get into the nitty-gritty then, the how-tos.
The manual talks about these things called containers. I'm not even sure what those are.
They're like the building blocks of your page layout. Think of them as virtual boxes you arrange your elements inside.
So images, text, buttons, all that stuff goes in containers.
Yep. And Bubble has different container types. Each one has specific layout properties. Like a row container arranges things horizontally, like a navigation bar.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
And then you have column containers. They arrange things vertically, like think of a list of blog posts.
Okay, so you've got rows and columns, and you can put containers inside each other.
Yeah, it's like a nesting doll situation.
Yeah.
Create a hierarchy, a logical flow for your page.
So I could have a row container, and inside I put 2 column containers, one for a sidebar and one for the main content.
Exactly. It's like building with Legos. You can snap them together in all sorts of configurations.
I like that analogy. Speaking of building blocks, the manual also mentions groups.
Right. Groups are similar to containers. They let you group elements together, but they offer more advanced stuff.
Like what?
You can apply styles or behaviors to a whole group at once. It's a huge time saver.
Oh, so instead of styling each button in my navigation bar individually, I can group them and style the whole group.
Exactly. And you can control visibility too. Like, say you have elements that should only show up for logged-in users. You apply the rule to the group, boom, done.
That's pretty slick. Simplifies things a lot. Okay, so we have containers and groups. Then there are these repeating groups. Those sound a bit more complex.
Repeating groups, those are game changers, especially for dynamic content, when you're dealing with lists of stuff.
Lists of stuff. Like what?
Think e-commerce. You have a list of products. You design the layout for one product, the image, the description, all that. Then the repeating group takes over, populates the rest based on your database.
So if I add a new product to my database, it magically appears in the list.
Yep, no manual adding needed. Repeating groups, they're real workhorses in Bubble. They can handle product lists, blog posts, user profiles, you name it.
Wow. I'm starting to see the possibilities here. It makes me realize how important it is to structure your database correctly from the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. The manual uses this project management app as an example. It's really helpful for understanding database structure.
Okay, so walk me through it.
All right, so first you'd have a project data type. Each project gets its own entry, like its own digital file folder.
Got it. So each project has its own space.
Right. Then you'd likely have a task data type for the individual tasks within each project. Each task would have its own details too. Title, description, who it's assigned to, priority level,
So it's like a hierarchy. Projects at the top, then tasks underneath.
Exactly. And Bubble lets you link these data types together. It's like you're creating relationships between them.
Okay, cool. But what about the people involved in these projects? Where do they fit in?
You'd create a user data type, store all the user info there, name, email, profile pic, and then you can connect users to projects and tasks, showing who's responsible for what.
So I could see at a glance which users are on which projects, working on which tasks.
Yep, it's all connected, but you need to control access, right?
Yeah.
You don't want everyone messing with everything.
Right. That's where those privacy rules come in, right? The ones we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Privacy rules let you set up granular permissions. You control who can see what, who can edit what. It's like a security system for your database.
So I could create a rule that says only users assigned to a specific project can view or edit the details for that project.
You got it. You can get really specific with these rules. It's all about keeping your data safe and organized.
Okay, permissions, check. I'm feeling really good about this database stuff. Now let's talk workflows. This is the part I'm most excited about, bringing our app to life. The manual uses a user registration workflow as an example.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Classic use case.
So let's break it down. What happens when a user clicks that sign up button?
Well, the workflow kicks in. It takes the info the user entered, their name, email, password, and it creates a new user in your database.
Okay, so that data gets stored. What happens next?
You probably want to send a confirmation email. Verify their account, make sure it's legit.
Yeah, that's smart.
And then you can redirect the user to a welcome page or a dashboard, get them started with your app.
So create a user, verify them, and then redirect them. Sounds like a solid registration process.
It's a good foundation, but you can get way more complex with workflows, depending on what your app needs to do.
Right. Can you give me an example of a more advanced workflow? One that uses conditional logic or, manipulates data in a dynamic way.
Sure. Imagine you're building an e-commerce app with a shopping cart. When a user clicks Add to Cart, you need a workflow to handle that.
Okay, so what happens behind the scenes?
The workflow first checks if the user already has a shopping cart. If they do, it adds the product to their existing cart. If they don't, it creates a new cart for them.
Got it. So it's like, do you have a basket? No. Okay, here's a basket for you.
Exactly. And then you can handle things like quantities. If a user wants to add multiple items of the same product.
Right. How does the workflow deal with that?
It can update the quantity of the product in the cart. You can add a step to make changes to the shopping cart, and of course calculate the total price and all that.
So the cart dynamically updates based on what the user's doing. That's pretty cool. This is making me think about those plugins we talked about earlier. How do they fit into the workflow picture?
Plugins are like, they add superpowers to your app.
Superpowers. I like that.
They can handle complicated things that you don't want to build yourself. Payments, social media, email marketing, all that stuff.
So I don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Nope. You can just plug in and go.
Right.
The manual talks about the Stripe plugin. That one's super popular.
What does the Stripe plugin do?
It lets you accept credit card payments in your app. It's all secure and everything. No need to mess with code for payment processing. Stripe handles it.
That's awesome. It's like having a whole team of expert developers working behind the scenes. But with all these plugins and workflows, does our app get slow? The manual mentioned something about workload optimization.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
As your app gets more complex, you got to pay attention to its workload, how much it's being asked to do. Bubble uses these things called workload units, or WUs. It's how they measure resource usage.
So if our app is working too hard, we might run into problems.
Yeah, you might see some performance issues, like lag or slow loading times. But the good news is, Bubble gives you tools to optimize your app. Keep those WUs in check.
What kind of tools?
They suggest things like minimizing database queries, using efficient filters, that kind of thing. Small tweaks can make a big difference.
Okay, so be smart about how we build things. Don't make the app work harder than it needs to. Got it. But what about security? The manual talked about this tool called Flusk for security auditing. What's that all about?
Flusk, that's your security watchdog. It constantly checks your app for vulnerabilities, data leaks, password weaknesses, that kind of thing. It's like having a virtual security guard, always on patrol.
So Flusk can spot problems before they become big issues.
Yep, and it gives you detailed reports, tells you how to fix things. It's a great tool for peace of mind.
Okay, security covered. This deep dive is amazing. I'm learning so much about Bubble. It really does feel like anyone can build an app with this platform.
It's pretty empowering, right? The no-code movement is changing everything.
Totally. I'm excited to see where it goes next. We've covered a lot of ground here. What's coming up in the final part of our deep dive? Welcome back. We've covered a ton of ground, but there's one more piece of the Bubble puzzle we need to explore.
The community, right?
Yes. The manual mentions this amazing supportive network of Bubble users. What's that all about?
The Bubble community is one of the best things about the platform. It's a global network, tons of passionate people.
Like a Bubble family?
Yeah, pretty much. Seasoned developers, total newbies, everyone's welcome. And they all want to help each other succeed.
That's so cool. So where does this all happen?
The Bubble Forum, that's the main hub. Discussions on everything, you name it.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Troubleshooting problems, brainstorming app ideas, showing off what you've built, asking for feedback. It's all there.
So if I'm stuck, I can just hop on the forum and ask for help.
Yep. And chances are someone's already been there, done that. They can point you in the right direction.
That's awesome. It seems like a really collaborative environment. Everyone's helping each other out.
It is. The Bubble community is incredibly supportive. And there are other resources too, not just the forum.
Oh, like what?
Bubble has a ton of educational content, tutorials, webinars, documentation. It's all really well done.
So no matter what your skill level, there's something for you.
Exactly. You can always find something new to learn.
Okay, so I've got the Bubble platform itself, and we've got this incredible community. What about the future? Does the manual talk about where Bubble and no code in general is headed?
The manual mainly focuses on the here and now, but it's clear that no code is changing the game. It's getting more powerful, more sophisticated all the time.
It's exciting. Anyone can build software now. You don't need to be a coding genius.
It's a real game changer. And Bubble's leading the charge, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So the future's looking bright for Bubble.
I'd say it's looking brilliant. As more people discover no code, we're going to see even more amazing things being built.
I can't wait. This deep dive has been incredible. We've learned so much about Bubble.
We have. We've gone from the basics to some pretty advanced stuff. And hopefully you feel empowered to start building your own apps now.
Absolutely. It's been a real eye-opener. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Just this. Bubble makes building apps accessible to everyone. You don't need to be a coder. You just need an idea and the willingness to dive in.
Well said. So, to everyone listening, what are you waiting for? Go build something amazing. That's it for this deep dive into the Bubble Manual. We hope you enjoyed the journey.
Happy bubbling.